Hey everyone, this is Chris from the GameBrew podcast. Before we get to the show, I'd like to personally thank all of you for listening. It means the world to us. If you'd like to support us, which I know you do, make sure to follow us on all the social medias like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and make sure to listen to us on everywhere you can listen to a podcast, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all those. If you want to get a little crazy, we'd love to see a review on iTunes or, wherever you like to review your podcasts. Those provide us the feedback we need to get better. If you want to get some awesome games, which I know you want to get your game on, check out Humble Bundle using the link bit.ly/GameBrew. You'll be able to help out us, your favorite podcast, get some awesome games, and help out some great charities. Well, that's enough from me. On with the show.
Hello and welcome to episode 61 of the GameBrew podcast. I am your host, Ian, Captain Price Richard, and I'm here with Bobby, Sergeant Woods Brown.
What's up?
Chris, Captain Soap McTavish Wrights.
Scottish noises.
Dan Makarov Rods.
You will all feel my power eventually. Wait, that was weirdly French. I don't know what the. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be Russian. No Russian.
And Will Riley Shell.
Woof. Fucking woof.
On the first half of the podcast, we'll quibble over whether there are too many World War II video games, and in the second half, we'll chronicle the history of the Call of Duty franchise. But first, it's time for a beer.
Poop.
Chris, what are we drinking this week?
Beers from Victory. I'll let Dan talk about Victory.
Yay.
He's been pumped about trying to get this beer on forever.
Yay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's because it's a PA brewery.
Yes, it is. Victory Brewing. Victory Brewing is in Delaware, and no, not Delaware, Downingtown, Pennsylvania, 420 Acorn Lane. Nice. But yeah, I mean, it's like a huge deal. Victory is like one of the biggest, like, I say Westchester, like Pennsylvania craft breweries. I think they were recently purchased by who, like Anheuser-Busch or something like that.
Boo.
But I mean, they're still doing their own thing. It's just, how they've been doing that. They've been buying up like
yeah. I do understand that.
They're buying up a bunch of different stuff. But yeah.
No, according to Wikipedia, which we all know is the be-all and end-all of information, allied with Southern Tier.
Oh, Southern Tier, right.
To become part of the Artisanal Brewing Ventures Holding Company.
Nice.
Also, apparently, they were founded in an old Pepperidge Farm bakery.
No way.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, totally.
GameBrew facts.
Cool. I love Pepperidge Farm. They make great cookies.
They do.
Baggies.
They do. And the little
and really nice bread.
There's never enough of them, though. But yeah, it's a huge beers around here. And since I guess this is going to be coming out on Victory Day, is whenever we're releasing this podcast.
V-Day?
On V-Day. So yep. I figured Victory Day, Victory beers, perfect combination. So I am
a winning combination.
A winning
perfect.
combination.
Ah.
So I'm just starting out with I got a variety of victories, but I'm drinking a homegrown dry hopped lager by Victory Brewing right now. It tastes like a lager. It's good.
It tastes like it seems like a good place to start. Chris, what are you drinking?
Me and Bob are drinking Cloudwalker. It's a hazy, juicy IPA, which I've been really into, especially this summer. Like, I guess that's like the Nipah type. It's like the hazy IPAs. But yeah, I've been really into them this summer for whatever reason.
Yeah. Also, Bob is here.
Bob.
Yeah.
Bob's here.
What do you
really?
think?
Bob's here?
I'm drinking the Cloudwalker too.
What do you think of it, Bob?
It's good.
Say it into the microphone, though.
It's really light IPA. Nothing too hoppy. It actually reminds me of a Brass Monkey. Just
that funky monkey.
Old English and orange juice.
It's a little more hoppy than that.
Yeah.
A hair bit.
Speaking of monkeys, I am drinking the Victory Sour Monkey. So this is their
nice
sour triple, and I don't. First of all, I don't generally like sours. I'm usually not into them, but
I don't generally like triples.
I really like this.
It's like
not that sour, which I actually really appreciate about it. It's just like it's one of those beers that you would want to drink like ice cold, like as cold as you could possibly get it. And you could sit by a pool and drink this all day long. It's almost like a shandy, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of like
love shandies.
Yeah, it's their they have like 3 different Golden Monkey ones out right now because the Golden Monkeys, Golden Monkey's like the really
it's like their flagship.
Yeah,
it's
the
most
big
popular
one.
People love that one. And then there's Sour Monkey, and then
and I saw there was a third one.
What's it called?
I like it a lot. I wish it wasn't so carbonated, actually. I wish it wasn't so carbonated, and I wish there was just a little bit more like stickiness to the head to it, but I think it's got too much alcohol in it for that, because it is 9.5% alcohol.
Good
They
lord.
have a rosé monkey.
Do they have a rosé? I'm not going to lie. I would drink the crap out of that.
Oh, and there's a Twisted Monkey as well.
Yeah.
Ian, that's hefty. Did that come with arm floaties or something to like stabilize you out as you drink it?
It did not. So yeah, the hosting's gonna go downhill from here.
It's been going downhill since episode 1. I mean,
hey, I think I reached my peak at episode 2, and then maybe
it's just been it's been a steady decline from then.
Speaking of steady decline, Bobo, how's Destiny 2 been treating you lately?
Pretty good. Back to the grind. With them coming out, kind of kicking Activision to curb. It's been a lot more of a grindy game, which I think a lot of the community wanted. But now it's getting to a point where the new season's coming out, so it's kind of a wait to see how much my stuff's not going to be usable anymore.
which is to say entirely as those games go. Do you feel like Destiny 2 has followed the same trajectory as Destiny 1, where the more new seasons of things that come out, the better the game gets, or has it kind of been mixed?
It's been mixed. A lot of it has been them figuring out what they're doing with Activision. When they left, it kind of was a clean slate. We got everything we wanted from Destiny 1. Now it's just kind of waiting for the new content to come out.
So has the grindiness taken away from... Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't play too much Destiny 2, but I played it enough to be like, I don't know if I want to keep playing this. Has it taken away from, what's the word I'm looking for here? Your engrossment in the experience, or do you think that's what generally the community does want? Because you briefly mentioned that. Kind of like a Diablo. You know, because people love the grindy experience of Diablo. It's like an out-of-body experience where you just collect gold stuff and hit things with a stick. Has that been well-received if it's going to a grindy type thing?
I think it has. A lot of the older community and kind of more faithful community likes that a lot. The grind between the raids and new content they've been coming out, there's always something to do. Whether you want to focus on PvP, PvE, or their new Gambit where it's PvE, PvP.
So it's not a boring grind. There's like activity. No. It's an activity-based grind. Okay.
Yeah. Their current grind is involving actually armor sets that will roll into the new content. So it gives you something to actually work towards.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay, so it does sound kind of like Diablo-esque. See, I like that. That's better than just like, let's get to 100.
Yeah, now that Bungie has like actual control over it, I think it's gonna be a lot cooler.
High hopes.
High hopes.
High hopes.
So
speaking of
fine. Nope. Speaking of high hopes, a game that I did not have high hopes for, but ended up being incredibly addicted to this week was Dragon Quest Builders 2. Holy crap, this game is good. Has anyone else played this? No?
I have not.
Insert cricket sound here.
So here's the thing. I'm not into Dragon Quest. I'm not super into Minecraft, and this game is basically a combination of Dragon Quest and Minecraft. And it is great. It is so good. The thing that always I bounced off of Minecraft because of was that like it's just too open-ended for me. Like I need at least a direction to be pointed in.
Need a goal.
And this game provides you with quests. So you have like goals within kind of a Minecraft structure. So it's like build this building, but it kind of like tells you how to do it or like what things to put in it, but you can put them in your own arrangements. You can kind of make it your own. It's really cool game, really great Minecraft and RPG mashup. I would absolutely recommend it to everyone who has a Switch.
Okay, so you had mentioned it gives you some direction. Is this something that I would like? Because like Minecraft also way too open for me, no direction. I feel like I'm wasting time. Astroneer, no, same problems. Like, well, I got some dirt and I got some space. Would I like it? Like somebody like grumpy gamer like me who wants some direction and some hand holding in the experience?
I would say it's a solid maybe. And the reason is because I know that you can get into some like Star Ocean-esque sort of Japanese RPG games. And Dragon Quest Builders 2 has some of those elements to it. But it also does lean pretty hard on like building a farm and like making sure that your buildings are set up right. So if you're not super into building, I would say maybe not. But if you like JRPGs a lot and you're thinking you might want to try your hand at a builder, it's really good. It also takes elements from like that game that I talk about all the time, Dwarf Fortress, and like Prison Architect.
I want to make a motion real quick. Can we move to add Dwarf Fortress to the things we're not allowed to talk about on the podcast?
Yes, it's been on notice and it's
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it. There, you heard it here, folks. No more Dwarf Fortress. Starting.
You will not have to hear about it. We're going to spare you. You don't have to hear about it anymore.
Starting.
You're welcome.
Now.
All right.
Hey, Ian, what's that game you like to play with all the goofy shit all over the walls? What's it called?
Goofy
I think it involves dwarves. It's like ASCII based. It's,
no. I don't even know what you guys are talking about. Chris, why don't you talk about Kingdom Come a little bit?
All right, yeah. So recently I picked up. I got it in Humble Bundle.
Nice.
It was gifted to you.
Humble
It was
Bundle.
gifted to me.
Go to bit.ly/GameBrew and you can get it too.
Well, now you can't because it's gone because it's already the next month. But that's where I got it.
Oh, dang.
Really good deal for $12. I think that was a historical low for it. Basically, you play as Henry, who's a peasant. You're the son of a blacksmith. You don't really have high aspirations in life other than being a peasant or a blacksmith eventually. And then suddenly your dad gets killed when this rampaging army comes through, and he's like formerly like has a mysterious past, and he's apparently like a really good sword fighter as well. So you basically start out as Henry, this peasant, with no skills whatsoever, and combat is pretty difficult. It has like this 5-star system where you can do different angles of attack with different weapons, and every time you try to fight, you get wrecked. So it's very like you have to really choose your fights wisely, and like sometimes you might have to poison your enemy before you fight them to actually win, because otherwise you will just get wrecked.
Dude, that's dark. Henry doesn't fuck around.
No, it strives to be as realistic as possible. So you have to control how much you eat. If you overeat, then you're feeling a little sluggish. If you don't get enough sleep, then you'll like start just like passing out. Like the screen will just start going black because you're so tired, and like your eyes are closing.
That's cool.
It's really cool. And there's other times where some of the immersion just gets kind of misplaced because like it's a little janky too. It was made by a small studio in Poland.
Yeah.
But overall, like it's a really good attempt at the open world first person RPG. And it strives and succeeds in a lot of ways to be as realistic as possible.
That's cool, man.
So I've been really
I'm gonna
enjoying it. It feels really old school.
Would you be into a Kingdom Come Deliverance 2?
Maybe. I mean, I think obviously like if there was a different character and maybe a slightly different setting, it might be interesting. Or maybe the same setting but just a different person's story could be cool.
Nice.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But cool, man.
I recommend it if you're into RPGs and you kind of want a more in-depth experience than like Skyrim.
Got it. Very cool. Dan, what have you been up to?
I finished a game.
Woo!
In a series of
games.
Here's the sound. And then I finished Uncharted, which I'd never played any of the Uncharted series. I got a PS4 like a year ago.
Very good.
Since then I've been trying to play like all the stuff that I haven't, like Last of Us I played. I've
God
got
of War.
God of War. I almost 100%ed to lend it to a friend. Public service announcement: don't lend your friends games. Just don't do it. They'll just never give them back. Shout out to Sage. But this is one of the ones where I was just like, you know what, I want to play this, and so I'm working my way through the whole series. I'm going to try and stream it if I can.
Was this the first one?
This was the first one. So Uncharted Drake's Fortune, which is the first one I beat, which was, delightfully simple. It didn't really have a whole lot. It's basically like, hey, go through the story, very basic, like shooting mechanics with like some cover-based stuff.
You're playing a movie.
Yeah, you're basically playing a movie.
It's cool, and it's fun.
And also like the Naughty Dog art style, like of their characters, how it's kind of, everything's kind of like, I don't want to say wiggly, but I'm going to say it like wiggly, Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Everything's like a little bit comic booky.
Yeah, right.
It's like Tintin.
Yes. Yeah, kind of like that. So it's kind of like that. And also the fact that there's like, to get bonuses, you have to find treasure, but it's not like, the treasures don't look like treasures. You just literally go around each little corner that you think is like, if I were to put something that someone's not supposed to find, where would I put it? Oh, in this corner over here. You go there, there's a little blinky light. You just press square on and you pick it up. It's like, it has no like visual representation other than this little blinking light that you're like, ooh.
I feel like from memory, the standout thing about that game to me was the voice acting. Does that still stand true?
Oh yeah, it's Nolan North being Nolan North. But yeah, no, it's great. And like Chris said, it's like a movie. Like everything is acted really well.
Do you think it's aged okay?
It was still fun. I mean, like there's a lot more. There are games like the Lara Croft series, which are Tomb Raider, which have a lot more like little itty bitty pieces. And again, I'm playing through Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. So
that's the one you start on the train.
Oh, I love Uncharted
that was a
2
really
Among
good
Thieves.
that was a
So
really
good.
good intro to the series or like to the game, because it's like still bringing you back to the climbing stuff, but also like, hey, look, there's more things other than just jungle. So
yeah, I need to pick that up again. I finished the first one. I was in the middle of the second one.
nice.
Yeah, those are just great games. Naughty Dog, man.
They do some good stuff.
What's the next big thing for Naughty Dog to come out? Is it
Last of Us 2, I think.
Last of Us 2? Yeah. Looking forward to it. All right, cool. Speaking of well, no, that's not gonna work.
Did Will say what he was playing?
I started up because I've been traveling so much for like a week and a half now. I started back up Hearthstone. Actually. Yeah, I wanted a break from Magic, and plus I'm on the Android phone, so the Magic the Gathering experience is not great on an Android phone. Well, it's not great on anything mobile right now because their mobile app sucks. But yeah, picked up some Hearthstone, been doing that a little bit, and I actually kind of got bored last night, and it didn't download fast enough because I was in a hotel, but downloaded Pokemon TCG, and I kind of want to try
Pokemon, the trading card game.
Yeah, there's a Pokemon game.
Is this your first time hearing about the Pokemon trading card game there, Ian?
On
Did you not have a childhood?
Is.
Oh, okay.
I've never played it. I've never played Pokemon at all, so I'm actually kind of excited to try that out.
Any of them?
Never.
You've never played any
played
Pokemon?
a card game.
Fuck?
Never played.
You ever played like Pokemon Red or Blue?
Like I played it a little bit. Like I never beat it, but I played
never
it
got
here
past
and there.
Brock.
Did you not get past Brock? Were you trying to use Charmander against the fucking rock types?
I mean, fire melts rocks, right?
In what world?
Eventually. In what world?
In the real world, volcanoes.
Wow.
But anyway.
Yeah, but not a Charmander. Come on, man.
Everybody throw shade at
you're
Will
right.
on social media for not playing.
Wow! How dare he?
You have no excuses to not play the new one.
Okay, so you'll have to report back next time about whether or not the online Pokemon card game is any good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Speaking of old things like Pokemon the card game, we wanted to take a second to talk about World War II as a historical setting for video games. Actually, just as a setting for video games. And to talk about how there are a bajillion World War II games and ask a couple questions. Number one, are there too many? And then also, is there a point in time where first-person shooters sort of turn into first-person stabbers or something of a different genre. So, Bob, I'm gonna put this question to you first, if you don't mind. Do you think there are too many World War II video games?
I don't think we've got to the point where it's too many, but there are enough.
We're at the perfect level.
That's it. The last one was
We're
made,
done.
and that's it. We're done. No more after this.
It's been done from a bunch of different angles. Call of Duty, Battlefield. There's been a bunch of other ones as well. It's just to the point now where it's redundant and the weapons are kind of limited. So I think we're to the point where it's time to find a new era to play with.
Well, to counter, I feel like we just kind of got back into like the World War II era stuff just because there were too many of the future shooter ones where, you know, it's like we had all these crazy futuristic guns and everyone was starting to be like, man, I miss just having an M1 Garand and, you know, just that satisfying ping whenever you get to the next bullet or whatever. And it's and so I don't know. I would disagree. I would say that I don't think it's done. I don't think that we've reached the perfect amount. I think we can just we need to keep playing with it. Like when Valiant Hearts, anyone play that one at all?
Oh, interesting.
That
Wasn't
was a side
Valiant?
scroller, correct?
It was
that
like
was World War One.
It was
No.
It was like
pretty sure.
Valiant Hearts was
It
World
was.
War I?
Yes,
Oh.
Chris. It was more World War I, but it wasn't a side scroller.
It was like, well, it was like 2D. It had like different portions of it, but things like that where I would say we can do games that take place during World War II. So maybe like less shooters, maybe more like, you know.
Yeah, I'd love to see a World War II visual romance novel or a World War II World War
II dating sim.
Straight up like
Hello, my name is Wilhelm. Would you like to go on the dates with me?
No, I just feel like here's the thing about World War II settings is that so many of them have been either like strategy games or first-person shooters, and even within that context, there's not a whole lot of variation on the World War II setting. So there was a PlayStation title that did World War II, but it was like World War II but plus aliens in a weird way.
Resistance, Fall of Man.
Resistance, yeah. So the Resistance Fall of Man games did this in an interesting way, where they took elements of World War II and made it into kind of a different fictional universe. And that kind of thing we actually haven't seen enough of. I'd love to see more iterations on that, or like a World War II like survivor game. Or Wolfenstein is another really great example.
That kind of flipped it.
World War II being done in a very original way.
That's cool.
Right? And that's your response to it when it's something that's actually original. I don't think, much like we would never talk about, you know, like poetry about flowers, being like, is there enough poetry about flowers? I just think flowers are an exhaustible resource. There's only so many flowers out there. I think in this, I think in this same way, I don't think that historical setting is worn out. I think a certain sort of by the numbers approach to that historical setting is worn out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, would you say that, I think that the same thing kind of happens with movies, and it's like World War II was huge. I mean, like number one, World War I happened, and we were like, that's it. The war to end all wars. That was what they called it. Like, this is it. This is the war to end all wars.
And they were like,
The
JK, LOL,
Great
here's a
War.
big one.
Yeah.
Hold on, beer.
And then they were like, oh, never mind. There's more.
We were wrong.
We thought it couldn't get any worse. It did. And there's so much there's so much story. Like there's so many movies, which is what I always think about.
Especially like in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. And they're still coming out with
Saving
stuff.
Private Ryan.
Yeah.
Band of Brothers.
What was the one that just came out? Like Christopher Nolan.
Dunkirk. So
Dunkirk
good.
was good.
And then there's I think there's a World War I movie coming in 1917, which I think is coming out. But it's just like, it's just so much. There's like so much human interest that happens during it, which I can understand why video game developers and movie producers and they use it. There's so much human interest because there's bad guys, there's good guys, there's guys who are not bad or good. They're just doing like things to be humans. There's people who are trying to help other people. Medal of Honor did Saving Private Ryan as a video game. And then I think they also did Band of Brothers as a video game, didn't they? Not by those names, because Medal of Honor Frontlines?
Allied Assault was the Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah. Allied Assault is.
Yeah. But in any case, there was a connection between the film and the video game industry there at one point where they're kind of riffing off each other, right?
They're just like, "Ooh, this is great."
But I think an example of kind of what I'm talking about in film genres is The Labyrinth, that Guillermo del Toro movie.
Yeah.
Pan's Labyrinth.
Yes.
Pan's Labyrinth.
The Labyrinth is a great movie, though.
But not about World War II.
But not about World War II. It's got David Bowie.
Pan's Labyrinth, on the other hand, happens a little bit post World War II, I want to say, during the Spanish Revolution. I think I'm saying the right words, but don't hate me if I'm wrong. In any case, but it's set during that time period, and it has a connection to war, but it's not necessarily about that war. It just happens to be set then. It's sort of like a very fantastical setting within something that feels very like earthy and gritty. So that's a way I think that video games could learn something from the film industry, and like, what would a fantastical realism World War II game look like, feel like, be about? Who would the characters be? What kind of motivations would they have, instead of like, it's a soldier with a gun storming the base?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of done with playing first-person shooters that are set during World War II. Like, the ones that kind of draw my interest more are like Company of Heroes did a really good job.
Oh, interesting. Company of Heroes was a strategy game, right? Top-down strategy?
Yeah, it was an RTS, but it also had a mechanic as keeping your units as squads. Each faction was very unique in the way they played, so it was a really well-done RTS. Things like Saboteur, which is where I think you're set in France during German occupation, and each time that you start out in sections of a city, and it's black and white, and when you free it, it turns to color.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's like black and white and red, I think is like.
Yeah.
It's pretty old and feels a little janky now, but it was really unique and kind of just refreshing to see. So like I think there's room for things like that, but I'm kind of done with first-person shooters in World War II. How far back, we talked about this a little earlier, how far back do you think you could go as far as war games before a first-person shooter would not work?
I think you look at something like Far Cry Primal, which theoretically is caveman times, and it's still...
Sure, but it's also melee-based, and it's also using a bow and arrow.
But still, bow and arrow is kind of like their, gun, and there are like different modifications on that, and like your hawk is the thing that's marking things instead of a drone. So I think you could make a convincing first-person shooter basically in any time period that you wanted to.
I gotta disagree with that.
I disagree with it too.
I think the furthest back you can go is like Revolutionary War period, maybe a little bit before.
No. I would say even after that. I think.
Are you kidding? I would love a Revolutionary War FPS.
You would love to reload for over a minute.
It would be. I bet they could reload
and
fast.
shoot a weapon that's not accurate.
I was gonna say.
I think they had, what do you call it, where they twisted the barrels?
Not till the Civil War did they have rifling, I don't believe.
Yeah.
So I think you could do Civil War, Revolutionary Army. I don't think like a Call of Duty-esque first-person shooter would work.
Call of Duty Civil War. Oh my god. Oh my god.
It would be cool. You could call in the cavalry.
What a landmine. No. How would you possibly... No, it's never going to happen.
You couldn't do that style, but Assassin's Creed 3 was set during the Civil War era.
American Revolution.
Revolutionary War era. So you had that flint pistol style fighting. You had regiments you were fighting where you weren't fighting against one rifle. You were shooting a battalion of 15, 20 people shooting at you and hoping to hit you. So I think you could do a shooter. You just couldn't make it a fast-paced first-person shooter set that far back.
Let's be clear here. You could set a first-person shooter whenever you felt like it and just make up inventions that didn't exist.
Oh.
Like I feel like Dishonored kind of does a good job of this, where there's like it's set in like a steampunk era, like 1800s, maybe like England, but there's a whole lot of tools that don't exist, and it still can function a little bit as like a shooter of sorts.
Yes, but also like I know that like for especially Battlefield, they also often try to strive for realism. So going farther back than World War One would be difficult.
Yeah, but
like if unless you want to gamify the like reloading and gamify the accuracy of those weapons, and
but
like it wouldn't work.
But they've already been gamified so hard. Like all of that stuff is already completely unrealistic. If you've ever shot a gun, especially an old gun, you know that none of it really feels like that.
Sure, but like they strive at least like with having bullet drop, and they have, they try to have realistic representations of things within the games often, and it would be a lot of suspension of belief if you had a rifle that reloaded in seconds for a Civil War game.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
Well, and there were during the Civil War, I think that was whenever repeating rifles just started to be a thing. So that was like,
I mean, who's to say you don't carry multiple rifles and you don't have a little patsy that follows you around? It's like, here, reload this
like the
while I do some work.
Like the Patriot. Yeah, just like that. Mel Gibson, he would do that. Or I mean, you could be like Time Splitters 2 and just bring whatever guns are using back into France and save the Hunchback of Notre Dame,
or the Order 1886.
Yeah, or the Order 1886, where it's like, ooh, fancy electricity guns because knights and werewolves. Because Nikola Tesla, yeah, he was a guy. He did some things,
right? So that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah,
is like
you could suspend the disbelief and say, here are some things that could exist from that time period, but also it's a game, so. It wouldn't be fun. Probably there were some games that are like Revolutionary War games that are RTSs, which you'd have to do because the rifles were so inaccurate. You would have to have a line of like 50 dudes just to maybe hit like 13 people or something.
And I'm super down for that. Actually, there aren't to my knowledge, I don't know of any Revolutionary War RTSs off the top of my head. Besides like Empire Total War.
Yeah.
I think,
which was awesome. I loved Empire Total War.
Yeah, I was gonna say that they had that kind of stuff.
Isn't Europa Universalis also kind of something where you could do that time frame?
It's not really RTS. It's grand strategy, like
right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think there was something from 2006 that tried to do this. I think it was called Birth of America. It was like the French and Indian War and the American Revolution. Yeah, so you do, RTS stuff. Yeah,
I actually have played a Civil War first-person shooter.
Oh, that's right. What's that called?
No, really?
It's called History Channel Civil War: A Nation Divided.
Oh, yeah.
It's terrible.
This
is
a
so
real
bad.
thing?
History Channel Civil War.
It was a History Channel game. It's so bad.
Well,
but I like. It's so.
It's developed
Xbox
by the
360.
History Channel.
Okay. Yeah, there's some. We're gonna have to come back to this. We're gonna have to come back to that at a different time. Dan, closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. Have you seen? Because we talk about how far back you could go. So there is a first-person stabber that came out pretty recently. A lot of people were playing. It was Mordhau.
Mordhau, yeah.
Where it's legit
person stabber.
Yeah, it's like legitimately. It's just like the same. It's they were like, hey, let's take Battlefield, but knights. And then you just go for it. So it's like you can have whatever sort of thwacky device you want. You can be.
Can you get horses and load them up? Or
you can get horses.
Yeah.
You can also be a bard. You can like go
That's
around with a
awesome.
loot and it like heals people whenever you're playing the stuff.
So that's the medic class as a fucking
Yep,
bard.
it's a fucking
That's great.
bard.
Like a surgeon, that would make way too much sense.
No, I wouldn't do
Bard.
A bard. Awesome. Oh, wait. Speaking of bards, do you guys hear that? Yeah, that's the music. We're going to half, friends. When we come back, we're going to talk about Call of Duty and the history of the Call of Duty series. Stick with us. We'll be back real quick. Hello and welcome back to the second half of the GameBrew podcast, episode 61. We're checking in with our victory beers. Is everybody feeling victorious in their
I feel
consumption?
like a fucking winner.
I feel like right now it's a no-brainer that I like my Victory beers because that's the one I'm drinking now.
I see what you did there.
It's an IPA, Dan. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, it's just an IPA, 6.8. A perfect formula makes for an easy choice as fruity and citrusy hops lead the way into this IPA. Our proprietary Hop Vic technology drives big hop flavor with notes of tangerine and mandarin oranges.
Nice.
Tangerine and mandarin.
Mandarin.
Mandarin, right? Yeah, of course. That's cool. That looks delicious. My sour monkey is still sour and still good. You know what the good thing about sour beers is?
Nothing.
What is it, Ian?
I mean, what?
Tell us, Ian. What
is that? You know how sometimes when you're drinking like a lager or something light, you can just like drink a whole lot of them, and you're like, why did I drink all of these beers?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen with sour beers because they're too sour to just chug.
So you don't drink all the
you
beers.
You drink less of said beer. And
I do like a good sour because you have to sip it. You have to sip it.
That's
and
what I'm
it's
saying.
like hot ass coffee. You have to sip it and appreciate it because it's just too much to take all at once.
That's
ass
how I
coffee.
feel about it.
Yeah.
Will, what are you drinking over there?
Nothing at the moment. I have an empty green cup.
An empty green cup.
I have an empty green cup, so I have.
It's
nothing.
the empty green cup brew podcast.
So I have.
No, it would be
because I sat here and ate my snack so that I wasn't eating it when we got to the second half, and didn't get up and get something.
It would technically be the Game Empty Green Cup podcast.
Game Empty Green Cup podcast.
I'm sure that would be very popular. So, as you might know, today is Victory Day, and that's why we wanted to talk about Call of Duty, a series that has its roots in World War II, and that is kind of everybody's favorite first-person shooter, or maybe everybody's favorite first-person shooter to make fun of. So this series has seen an incredible evolution over the last 16 years, and today we're going to talk all about the changes, the good and the bad that the series has been through, and how it started as sort of like a Medal of Honor killer and became a multiplayer behemoth. So I wanted to start this off by asking if anyone has some specific memories about a specific Call of Duty game that you remember really fondly.
Yes.
Well, for me, Modern Warfare came out the same year I started college, and I just remember a lot of my freshman year hanging out in the dorm and with all my roommates playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and it was a blast. We had so much fun doing that.
Yep. I have a problem with specific memories from this game because I guess it's where there's so many iterations and they're so similar from year to year. I mean, they're dissimilar if you start branching apart in years and put gaps in the middle, but it all sort of blends together. And I have some really fond memories of like sitting in college, everybody in a room playing Call of Duty, or all of us on Xbox Live or something. But I couldn't tell you which specific game it was or which map it was. It just all runs together. The only thing I remember anything about is the airplane map. That's the only one. And Burger Town. It has Burger Town.
Oh, Nuketown.
Or is that Nuketown that's got Burger Town? Okay, gotcha.
And then I Call of Duty 3 is mine because that came
Call of Duty 3 prior to Modern Warfare.
Yes, because that was the one that came out. I guess that was on Xbox 360, and that was like the first one on Xbox 360. So I remember playing that and being like, "Oh my gosh, this is look at the graphics are amazing." I was like, "Oh my god, the graphics are amazing! It's so cool." The very first level where you're in the desert, so you start off sitting in the back of the truck, and then like the planes are flying over. Like I legitimately remember sitting there going like, "Oh my god!" And my dad was sitting next to me too, so we were both like, "Oh my gosh, this is the really coolest thing! Yo, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen!" And it's just.
It's funny that you mentioned like the pre-Modern Warfare Call of Duties as their thing, because I actually remember my buddy Jimmy and I were really into story-based co-op first-person shooters before like multiplayer online was such a thing.
Shout out to Puddin'. This one's to you.
Shout out to Puddin'. So I can remember having this conversation with him where I was like, yo, like Modern Warfare, or no, Call of Duty's coming out, and also, Medal of Honor is such a great series as well. Like, I wonder which one's going to win out in the end. And like, people don't even know that Medal of Honor existed now.
Yeah.
Because they were born after that game.
Well, Medal of Honor was huge,
was popular.
and then Call of Duty just came in and just like whop. I mean,
right, and it's interesting to me that that's Medal of Honor was very much created like in cooperation with Steven Spielberg to be something that was like historically accurate and kind of close. And the original Call of Duty games, Call of Duty 2, and Call of Duty 3 as well, mirrored that sort of Medal of Honor ethos. And then since then I've just gotten crazy, but nobody really filled that void of like realistic quote unquote historical shooters. Battlefield maybe in a couple of times, but it took a long time for that void to be filled. So yeah, I almost remember Medal of Honors more than I remember Call of Duties, which is kind of funny.
So Modern Warfare, the original, was my kind of end all be all. It was my first one where that what got me started into online gaming. Whether it was just sitting in my apartment and having 4 screens up and running through Rust, grenading people for days, or hopping online and having friends over talking trash in the mic while we run up 20, 30, and 1 KDs. That's what kind of got me into really the modern day first-person shooting gaming. Because before that, I mostly was into sports games and a couple games here and there, but that's really what solidified my kind of enjoyment of first-person shooters.
Yeah, me and Bob used to live together back in college, and I remember very fondly playing a lot of Black Ops, the original Black Ops, just trolling people. There was, I can't remember, Black Ops, the original Black Ops was set during Vietnam, I believe.
Yeah.
And there was one map that had kind of like a river running through the center with bridges across it. And then kind of like rice paddies in the one section. And I remember just sitting there with M60s with Bob, just holding down one side of the map. And it was some of the most fun that we've ever had probably playing video games.
Am I correct in that this franchise can probably be like hugely credited with being one of, if not the major driving force for online console multiplayer? Because I don't really remember playing a lot of online console multiplayer before Call of Duty. I mean, it was around.
I mean, Halo did.
That's what I was going to say. Is that Halo 2 was the one that made online, like it basically made Xbox Live a viable thing. Whenever there was really no online component to multiplayer shooters, they were just like, hey, guess what? Now they're AM. And so, but that's kind of,
now they're AM.
So that's like, I think, because that one came out, Call of Duty 3 did have an online component. It wasn't amazing because it was still kind of like hard to navigate, until Halo 2 came out with all the matchmaking stuff and all of these different like ways of getting people into games faster, when like different game modes. That's whenever it really started to kick off in the into the multiplayer era. But they really perfected it. Like, I mean,
because I didn't have like an OG Xbox until like really late, and I picked one up, so I just missed out on that. Was it big? Like, was it a big deal like the 360 online multiplayer was?
For me, it wasn't, because I had dial-up internet until I got to college.
Wow.
So
interesting.
That's one of the reasons why
how the Chris's
Modern Warfare
have changed.
Yes.
See, I had a gamer dad, so gamer dad means fast internet.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, we had slow internet too, and so the multiplayer thing was kind of a slow burn for me until I got to college too. But I think Dan's point is really salient, especially Modern Warfare really moved online console-based multiplayer from a point where it was like kind of niche to something that was not just popular within the gaming community, but like popular within
universally popular.
Universally popular. And that I think was a moment where sort of like gaming got this sort of like, I don't want to say social media, but like just like general media boost, and you would see it places that you hadn't thought of it being before, which is interesting that a single game had such an influence on how people see gaming. And I think that's a really interesting thing
I think that's
about the Call of Duty franchise.
I think that's major. Like, You say that, and like we can look back now and almost sort of trace the timeline of events. Of we had that, and then this long progression to esports and online gaming. I mean, you can sit down at a bar and watch Overwatch on a TV at like a B-dubs or something, and it got its start back in what we're talking about.
Right, and they didn't stop after the original Modern Warfare, too. After the original Modern Warfare, it was kind of like they knew that they had something. If they could just press the right buttons in the media, they knew that they had something on tap where they could get people to buy into the game. So in Modern Warfare 2, you'll remember the opening single-player mission is that No Russian mission, which is incredibly notorious these days in terms of its message and gameplay.
I thought that was Modern Warfare. That was Modern Warfare 2?
It's Modern Warfare 2.
It's Modern Warfare 2.
It was the second one.
Because the first one was the one with the ghillie suits. And the
Oh,
dogs.
right. Yeah. And then they tried to recreate that in every one after that, and it just never was the same.
Yeah. Well, but I think the point I'm trying to make is Infinity Ward especially has very consciously tried to push the buttons of society in a way that makes them buy into the games, either by making them very controversial or by sort of like just blowing up like either the story or the multiplayer or something. Like they're shooting at something bigger than trying to make a good video game. They're shooting at trying to have sales that are so big that it makes an impact on society, which is what is the word I'm looking for? Hubris, maybe?
Maybe hubris. I don't know, but also
Epic.
that's kind of like whenever the two, I guess now it's 3 developers, but 2 developers that kind of originally were going back and forth. So
yeah, so are you going to give the
because
like the general
because
layout,
basically it was like whenever Activision was doing all of these, they're working with 2 different companies, and the ones are either Infinity Ward and Treyarch. Basically what they said is like, we're just going to take turns doing Call of Duty. Like Infinity Ward will come out with one, Treyarch will come out with one, Infinity Ward will come out with one, Treyarch will come out with one, until eventually Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer teamed up for Modern Warfare 3. Then they added them into the rotation, so now it's Treyarch, Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer, and then it kind of keeps going.
Can we talk about how genius that is? Because there was always some new take on everything every year from it, rather than burning out one developer over reviews. I don't think it would have had the legs that it does had they not swapped out and given.
No, I think it's a really good point that EA kind of had an ace in the hole, knowing that they had 2 decent developers. Sledgehammer, we can talk about being decent.
Activision. Are you talking about Activision or are you talking about EA?
I'm sorry, Activision had 2 decent developers that they knew they could, like, this is basically a 2-year development cycle that they're staggering year to year. So it's a new game every year, but a different studio, which is super smart.
Yeah. But you know what's interesting, and I was going to say this earlier, is that they kind of have things that they're good at. So if you what do you think Treyarch is good at if you were to
Zombies.
like the zombie stuff?
Yeah.
Well, let me see. Yeah,
I mean,
obviously,
think,
they invented the zombies.
The zombies, and then like multiplayer, I think is where their stuff excels at. But what do you think? And this is, I kind of think this. I don't know. What about Infinity Ward? What do you think they excel at whenever they're looking at this stuff?
I think they've got the better stories.
They have the much better campaigns.
It's always like
Absolutely.
a big set piece thing. So like in Modern Warfare, it was that sniper level, right? That was the thing that everyone kind of remembers. In Modern Warfare 2, it was no Russian. Modern Warfare 3, obviously, it was like the conglomeration. Like you finally got to take out Makarov and be like, yes, save the world.
That's true, and a lot of the Treyarch storylines either sort of did old things like World at War, or like didn't really end up being that interesting. If you think about like Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3, I don't really remember a whole lot of story. What's interesting in the outlier here is possibly Call of Duty Ghosts Infinity Ward, because they sort of invented a new sort of like timeline, right? It's neither Black Ops nor Modern Warfare timeline.
Well, that's what they did that with that one, and then they also did that with Infinite Warfare 2, which it was just kind of like
right. And both of
disassociated.
those kind of flopped in terms of their single player campaigns and the buy-in to those storylines. There really wasn't a whole lot of continuation. We haven't seen Call of Duty Ghosts 2 or Call of Duty Infinite 2, and there's probably a reason for that. the setting and the storyline didn't resonate. Is kind of what I'm saying.
Well, I think with that one, it's because the multiplayer didn't do successful. Because at the end of the day, the Call of Duty franchise is their online play.
I mean,
Right.
Infinite
Campaign
Warfare
we
did
can
not
beat.
have. That's the one that really got bashed on the multiplayer, correct?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
Ghost
that
was.
Because they had like the wall jumping and all sorts of weird crap.
I don't. Goose
Is that it?
or Ghost did not have the wall jumping. I think they had the double jump and the grapple.
Advanced Warfare is where
That's what I'm thinking
the
of.
real wall jumping, double jump stuff started. I think Ghost. I don't even know if Ghost had a double jump. I don't think so. But it's also interesting to note that it started as a story-based sort of campaign-focused video game and turned into one that was very largely focused on multiplayer. I mean, Black Ops 4 doesn't even have a single-player campaign. Call of Duty, the original, was very much focused on the individual storyline.
What do you guys think about the fact that they've cycled back around and now we're back to Call of Duty Modern Warfare?
So this game's kind of interesting because this was announced at E3 this year. And because, or was it announced at later? Was it at E3?
I think E3. That sounds right. We'll go with it.
GameBrew facts. They're never 100% correct.
Except when they are.
But basically what they're doing is they're just they're reimagining the Modern Warfare plot line. So that's why it's just called Modern Warfare, is because they're kind of taking this universe. So like Captain Price is back, Soap's back, Ghost is back, like all of these characters and the main players that we remember from the story, because that story was so like it sticks into your head. Unlike the story for BioShock Infinite for Ian. But
Hey.
but the stuff's like sticks in your head where like it's like, yeah, you know, Captain Price is like the coolest MFer in the whole world, and that he's like in charge of this whole squad of people. So with this new one that's coming out, I think they're trying to capitalize. I think they're trying to bring people back in to Infinity Ward's Call of Duty stuff, because the last few Infinity Ward Call of Duties haven't been great.
Right, Infinite Warfare, and then prior to that would have been Ghosts. So those are the last two Infinity Ward ones. Sorry, just to review.
So you think they're just trying to press that like classic nostalgic?
Oh yeah, totally. Because that's all. Most of a lot of the gaming industry is going for that now. They're trying to get us like 30 somethings to remember playing games
you're not wrong.
We played before. That's why they're re-releasing.
Same thing that Disney's doing.
Yeah, exactly. What's it called? What are a bunch of the
live action remakes?
Yeah, and they re-released a bunch of PS4 stuff. So like the Crash Bandicoot stuff is coming back. Sonic Team Racing is coming.
You want to push my buttons? Redo Excite Bike. That's what I want.
Excite Bike. Can we talk about real quick? Can we talk about what happened in 2010 when the two head developers, as I understand it, left Infinity Ward and respawned as Respawn, who made some really fabulous games. Dan, I know you know a little bit more about this than I do, so maybe you can talk about that.
I do. So in 2010, the two heads of Infinity Ward back at the time were fired by Activision. Basically, they were not super happy because they didn't get a bunch of royalties that they thought they deserved, that they needed from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So they were talking to EA about another project, and that was what Activision was like, oh, you can't do that. You're going behind our back, trying to start new IPs, so we're going to fire you. And so they did, and surprise, surprise, they went to EA and were like, hey, starting our own company. Them and 48 other people from Infinity Ward all left. And
yeah, right. So there was this huge departure from Infinity Ward during the development of, was it Modern Warfare 3?
Yep.
I think then. Yeah, which is why Sledgehammer sort of ended up being brought in the first place. But more importantly, which is why Respawn exists. And Respawn, like, can I just shout them out and say how much I love Titanfall and Titanfall 2. And if you haven't played
games,
Titanfall 2, please go play it. These are the same folks who obviously worked on what is the battle royale?
Apex.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We worked on Apex, which is to me not as good, but like I have the utmost respect for the studio because they managed to change up the first person shooter, especially the multiplayer first person shooter, in a way that felt really satisfying and interesting that hadn't been changed up for a long time.
Bob, did you? Yeah, I know you play a lot of PUBG. Do you play Apex at all?
Not a whole lot. I mean, the first time I picked it up, I didn't really pay attention to who made it, and I was like, "Oh, this feels like Titanfall." And then I felt stupid when I actually read it, and I was like, "Oh, it is."
It
Titanfall.
is Titan.
It's actually interesting to me that they decided to ditch the wall running in Apex and not keep it because it's kind of bread and butter of the Titanfall series.
It'd have been super broken.
I know, but
Hands down.
with the right environmental design, I think it could have been super cool too. In any case, I just thought it's interesting that not only does Call of Duty have multiple timelines within Call of Duty and multiple gameplay modes that are almost entirely distinct, but it also has spawned off its own completely different series. So you can see like this huge cultural buy-in into this one video game that has just iterated and iterated and iterated. I also think it's interesting to talk about zombies being a thing because it kind of wasn't before World at War, and now like zombies is just like zombies are everywhere. Yeah, exactly.
Especially because it's so. Oh my gosh, Bob, were you part of this crew also? Whenever we were trying to do all of the freaking Easter eggs, whenever it was like Black Ops 2. And we were all in college, and we would just get on Xbox Live, and we were like, okay, we think we figured out how to do this part of the Easter egg. So it'd be like, I guess it would be like Bob. I would be there sometimes. I think Bizarro Ian was on there too. I think
I was there on occasion.
Yeah.
Strick was there.
That's bizarre.
That's Bizarro Ian,
yeah.
Makes sense.
But oh man, I still play those games. I love Zombies and Black Ops 4.
Yeah, zombies were great.
Does anyone else play it aside from me, like the Black Ops 4?
I would play it.
I would play it.
Well, we all have
Also.
it. Humble bundle.
What
PC?
prompted them to start the zombie thing? Because like Walking Dead wasn't a thing then. I mean, it might have been a comic form.
It was probably just like an idea that came out of like a hacking night. Like people were like, bring out stupid ideas and we'll play around with them just for fun.
It's a great idea.
That's when Call of Duty had those extra couch co-op modes. Modern Warfare had them with their Strike Force stuff. I think that was something that came about like, what can we do that we haven't done? And someone just yelled zombies. And here we go. Years later, we're still playing.
It's like there's a guy asleep in the back of the room. It's like, Ted, what do you think we should add in the game?
Zombies.
Wrapping this section up, what I want to ask is there's this new Call of Duty Modern Warfare reboot coming out. From each of you, what do you think is most important to the success of this new Modern Warfare? Is it the cinematic storyline? Is it the online multiplayer? Is it zombies? What do you think is most important for Call of Duty securing their future after already having iterated for 16 years? And I will go to Will first.
I think nailing the simplicity of that online gameplay, because it got really complex for a while. And I feel like I'm probably not the only person who backed away from it with all of that. I think just simple, exciting, to the point, easy to pick up and understand online gameplay.
Okay, I can see that being a thing. Chris?
That's a tough question because I don't play a lot of multiplayer first-person shooters anymore. So for me, like, I kind of want to see a better campaign, but I also like kind of feel like at this point in time, like I'm not going to be going to Call of Duty for our campaign anymore. Like I'd rather do a Doom campaign. I'd rather do a Wolfenstein campaign. I'd rather do, things like that just because I'm tired of generic first-person shooter campaigns.
Interesting. Dan?
I would say, they need to do something, and what I'm looking forward to seeing is hopefully that they're not going to just stick with the cookie cutter, like Call of Duty campaign stuff. Because that's what has been the downfall of Call of Duty recently, in my opinion. is that that single, and why Black Ops doesn't have a campaign is because not many people really play the campaign because it doesn't have anything. It doesn't have substance. So what it needs to do is they need to give me a campaign that has something with substance in it. And I think they're already appealing to the nostalgia with the Modern Warfare. Modern Warfare stuff. But I think they're going to need to do something with like to make it less of the exact same thing.
Just real quick, actually, I realized what I really want. A fucking co-op campaign. That's what I want.
Yes.
Ooh, I love that actually. That would be awesome.
Finally. Bob.
They just need a really solid campaign and to stay true to their fan base. I know that's something that did not happen so well with the most recent Black Ops and the paywalls. So if they can back off and find the correct balance and keep true to their long history of fan base, they should be able to knock it out of the park as long as they don't try to think over profit over just enjoyment.
Nice. All right, GameBrew fans, what do you think that Call of Duty needs to be successful in its next iteration? Let us know by hitting us up on
You bitch.
hitting us up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the GameBrew. That is going to be it for us tonight. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. It's like the afternoon.
I still don't have my mug from Allison.
Well,
Oh, Bob. Oh, shit, Bob. Dude, what's up? I'm sorry. Like,